It's time for your Low Country Real Estate Market Update. It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Brian is one of the top 1% real estate agents in Charleston. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. Now, broadcasting from the WTMA studios, here's your host, Brian Beatty.
Good morning, Charleston, and welcome to another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. Got a lot planned for you guys today, but here's a big question. Is home ownership broken? Is it still dead in this country, quote unquote? Well, according to Grant Cardone, for those of you that know who he is, very well-known multifamily investor, he has said home ownership is still dead in this country because the only people that are buying homes right now are people that have equity, great credit, and a job. So is that such a bad thing that people that are investing in real estate have the ability to do so? He says we're going to be a nation of renters. You know, renting will become the economic choice and the desirable choice, and that homeownership is only being driven right now by the upper class. And so I wanted to really I want to go straight forward. I want to dive into this. I want to talk about the real estate market at a high level today. Okay, I want to look at it from a 30,000-foot view. A lot of people have a lot of questions about the direction of the market. Are we about to, see a bubble burst? Are things going to continue in the direction they are? What's going to happen? All these folks that have been laid off or that have been going through furloughs, that have taken forbearances, will those turn into foreclosures? And so, I'll tell you what, first, before we get into any of that, if you want to reach out to me, let me just get this out of the way. If you want to give me a call, you want to talk about the real estate market, you want to talk about your specific situation, you're interested in buying, selling, or investing in real estate. Obviously, we sell real estate throughout the week. We'd love to help. We've sold over 1,100 homes here in the Charleston area, top 1% of agents for over a decade now. My number is 843-400-8009, 843-400-8009. Or you can visit us online, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. A lot of great information there, a lot of great resources. Listen to the show that I've been on for, it's been 8 years now I've been on this program. You can look at the MLS, find out how much your home is worth, look at some of our incentives like our Renovate to Sell program or Sell Your Home on Your Own with our For Sale by Owner program. Lots of great stuff out there, listingsincharleston.com. So let me just kind of tee this up for a quick second, and I'm going to introduce the guest. So I called my buddy Derek, and I said, "Hey, I need you to nerd out with me for a few minutes as we just talk through what's going to happen in this real estate market." And I had some questions, and very obvious that he's an expert in his field. And when he has questions about real estate, he calls me. When I have a question about mortgages and just the lending industry, so on and so forth, I call him. And so I said, let's look at a few things here. Number one. Interest rates are what? 3%, sometimes below 3%. Banks have to be making very little money on these loans. And so, are they just pumping out these loans to keep the wheels turning? Are they actually turning a decent profit on it? And then what happens when all of these properties that have been purchased over the past, let's say, few years that don't have a significant amount of equity go into forbearance? And for 3 months at a time, they can basically kick the can down the road, not make payments, and do that up to a year. But what happens when they can't pay at the end of a year? What happens if after several months their situation hasn't improved? How's that going to impact banks? How does that impact the bigger picture for our market? You've got some real economic headwinds that I think we should be talking about, or at least be aware of. And so I'm going to bring Derek into the conversation. This is Derek Goulet with Fairway Independent Mortgage. Derek, you there?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. All right. So as I mentioned, hey, we were talking a little while ago and just kind of nerding out on the real estate industry, which we have a tendency to do. And we're talking about creating an institute for real estate agents that want to learn how to do things good and do other things good too. But we were so.
Zoolander.
Yes. Keep up, folks. All right. So let's just, I want to get into this because I think we really touched on some great nuggets there that people are curious about. And so let's kind of just recreate that conversation, so to speak, so people can be a fly on the wall. And And I'm going to start this with, the question that I asked you, which is, should there be concern about the fact that interest rates are so incredibly low that banks aren't really making a lot of money, and as a result of that, they're open to a significant amount of risk if these mortgages that they're servicing turn into defaults and foreclosures?
So, kind of as I said earlier, just to kind of repeat it, the reality is banks are making some money. Volume is way up, and that leads to more overall dollars in profit. But as I kind of said earlier as well, profit per deal is down. We are kind of in an environment where we're just trying to keep up with the demand and service the need of the customer. And when rates are this low, there's not as much room to make money like in times past. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, you talk to basically any real estate agent or loan officer out there, and they're saying they're having the best year ever, which who would have thought that would have been a side effect of, a pandemic, coronavirus. But what I want to touch on are all the folks that have this, the sky is falling mentality, and is there validity to that? And I've talked about it on this program, but I'd like to talk about it, really more from your perspective, what you believe and what you're seeing as somebody that is very deep into the financials of the decision-making process and the market in general.
So I don't think that the sky is falling in any way, shape, or form. I think that lending over the last, let's just start from today backwards, the last 3 to 5 years is entirely different than anything I've experienced in my 21 years of doing this. And so the standards at which we analyze and look at people are entirely different, especially during the age of COVID, where some people are out of work, and the extra scrutiny that we put them through, I think really does set a lot of people up for success and not failure. And as you touched on, rates are so low, that borrowing costs are so low that, a lot of people who might currently be one-income families, if they, God forbid, had to, have 2 people go back into the workforce, they could have close to minimum wage jobs and still make their mortgage payments. And then the other thing that we touched on earlier was, people have way more equity now than they've ever had. And so from that perspective, God forbid somebody's, going to not be able to make their payment moving forward, at least they have money to transition into something else moving forward.
Right. I mean, if you look at, the stat that I'm aware of, is that about 7% of mortgages are in forbearance right now, and about 75% of those are already on an extension. And so that's, I think close to 4 million folks that are in that position right now, at least as of the end of September. But, in the grand scheme of things, does that mean that we have a huge wave of foreclosures headed our way? Yes, of course, there are going to be some people that will end up having to take that route. And that's unfortunate. And you never want that for anybody. But even if you've owned your home for, let's call it 2 years, in some areas, just a year, depends on how well you bought the house. But folks have equity. They can still sell their home and, at minimum, break even, and then just kind of hit the reset button for a little while. And so, yep. I disagree with Grant Cardone's perception of the housing market, because I think in me it's a little fear-mongering, it's a little scare tactic to say that we're going to become a nation of renters because the only people that can afford a house right now are the people with a job, good credit, and money. But I'm sorry, isn't that the way it should be? I mean,
I would say that that's just unequivocally not true. I mean, there's still low down payment. If you really have to go that route, there's down payment assistance programs available in almost every state out there. Specifically, there are some in South Carolina as well. And then, I mean, again, rates are so low that what people are paying in rent, they can get a pretty decent house with not a lot of capital out of pocket. So
yeah, I've got a friend right now that's renting downtown for $1,800 a month, and he says, "Hey, I just need a simple like 2-bed, 2-bath townhouse. You know, I'm unmarried. I want to be in Mount Pleasant. It's where I work." We can get him into a place in between the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance. He's at like $1,100 a month, $1,200 a month. It's insane how the difference there. And obviously, he's paying a little bit of a premium to be downtown now versus moving to Mount Pleasant in, a bit of a different setting. But still, that's a significant savings, and you have the benefit of homeownership. So I think for a lot of folks out there, it's much more of a reality than people think. But I wanted to touch on this idea that some people have this doom and gloom mentality that they know something we don't, which is that this market is about to crash, and it's not just going to be a little one; it's going to be hard. It's going to be the worst our economy has ever seen. And I feel like more signs are pointing toward it not being that bad than that actually becoming a reality.
And I totally agree with that. The factors that led to the housing bubble in 2008 are not even anywhere close to prevalent today. 2008, you had mortgages with no income, no asset documentation, 100% financing. And we had 5 straight years of 20% plus appreciation. And we don't have any one of those 4 factors today.
Right. Right. Well, when we come back, we're going to talk more about what's happening here locally, because we can talk about national stats and, their overall feel for what's happening here in America. But we need to, of course, apply that to what's happening here in the Lowcountry. So when we come back, we're going to talk about what's happening here in our market, how that impacts you, buyers, sellers, investors, real estate agents, those that are just involved in some way, shape, or form in the real estate process. So, Derek, thank you very much. Hey, if somebody wants to reach out to you, how do they get in touch with you? What's the best way?
Cell phone, 949-280-8044. That's 949-280-8044. Call me or text me.
Sounds good. And folks, if you weren't quick enough to write that down, you can always just give me a buzz, because I leave my contact information out throughout the show, and I'll put you in touch with Derek. But Derek, I really appreciate it. Thanks for, like I mentioned earlier, nerding out with me on what's going on in the real estate market, and talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Brian.
All right, folks, stick around for more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. And again, remember, if you want to reach out to me and talk more about what's happening with you, your specific situation, your plan, you want to talk more about the idea of buying right now, selling right now, what that looks like, what you should be thinking about, preparing for, where the opportunities lie, feel free to give me a call, 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. Or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Stick around, folks. We'll be right back.
More stimulating talk on real estate matters with Brian Beatty next on 1250 WTMA.
1250 WTMA, the Big Talker.
Now, here's more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I'm, of course, Brian Beatty, your host. And big shout out to Derek Goulet with Fairway Independent Mortgage for talking through really the big picture of the market right now. And I got to say that when major changes like this take place, when there are major headwinds to our market, when the sea gets a little rough, you have all different kinds of folks that come out. That you have folks that are saying, we'll be fine. You have other folks that are saying the sky's falling and the market's going to crash, and here are all the reasons why. And then you have some folks that are like, it's going to get a little worse before it gets a little better, but we'll be okay. And I'm middle ground on this, just so you know where I stand on it from the things that I've seen and experienced and read. And you guys know that I'm this is what I do. I'm an expert in residential real estate in Charleston, but of course, in order to be that, I need to understand what's happening regionally, nationally, how that impacts us here in the Low Country, and how that impacts you and your decision making when it comes time to buy, sell, or invest in real estate. And then, of course, it's just a combination of my experience as somebody that's sold over 1,100 homes and been in the top 1% of agents here for 11 years. And so I want to talk now about what's happening in Charleston. Let's focus on our hometown for a little while. Let's not worry about what's happening nationally. And yes, of course, that does factor into what happens here locally. A lot of folks still moving from the Northeast, targeting Charleston. We continue to get good press that says we're the number one small city in America. Rightfully so, by the way. This place is awesome. But we've got all these folks that are targeting Charleston. We've a lot of people that are moving here. A lot of the folks that are calling on our listings for sale are obviously coming from other places. We're getting a lot more phone calls and a lot more inquiries from folks that are outside of Charleston, of course, than folks that are here. And so when you look at our market in general, and just look at some of the stats, and again, we've been talking about this really at this point for years, and I'm going to say like 3 years. I started warning you guys about it 3 years ago and how inventory was starting to come down and that demand was outpacing supply. And then things, got a little bit better. But then, my goodness, the beginning of really the April, May of 2019 is when things started to take a pretty big dip. We started to go down. May of 2019, especially in the residential resale market, right? If I'm excluding new construction from the picture for a moment, if you just look at homes that have been built, right, previously owned properties, we had about 5,000 homes available for you to purchase in May of 2019, right? Then things start to go down. At the end of the year, we had about 4,000. So beginning of this year, it usually harbors right around that same number for the first 2 or so months of the year. Not a ton of people are quick to throw their homes on the market. And so we kind of just, the inventory is fairly balanced at that particular moment in time, December, January, February, which, by the way, for us at least, has always been an awesome window of opportunity for sellers to sell their home, because not a lot of people are motivated to sell at that point in time, but you have plenty of buyers that if they see the right property, they will jump on it. And they just feel like they're kind of forced to wait until spring because that's when all the good inventory hits the market. It's going to be a little different this winter and this coming spring, I can tell you that. But just kind of following this trend line for a moment so I can attach a story to it. So we know that May of 2019, we've got about 5,000 homes. By the end of the year, we've got 4,000 homes. Well, we spike a little bit in March up to 4,300 properties. And of course, that's when the coronavirus becomes prevalent. And then every month, we start losing hundreds of properties in the form of inventory. So remember, 4,300 properties in March of this year. At the end of September, we're down to 2,600. It is a sharp decline. If you guys could see the graph on my screen right now, it's no joke. And so we've had all these homes for sale that have essentially disappeared from the market. And so then we start to look at, all right, well, where are they going? Are they just coming off the market and not selling? Are people freaked out and said, hey, I'm not having anybody come through my house right now. We're hitting the pause button. Well, yes, you have some people that have said that, but we went from putting, let's call it 1,000-ish properties under contract, 11 or 1,200 or so in the first few months of the year, to then we put 1,800, 1,900 properties under contract. And we've been doing that. May was 1,700, June 1,900, 1,850, September 1,700. I mean, the biggest spike we have had since I can see data, decades. More properties we've ever put under contract in the history of Charleston. And so we were absorbing all of this inventory at alarming rates. And folks that are, following everything that's happening in the world as it relates to this pandemic are saying, I don't know if I want to deal with the process of having people walk through my house right now. And then, of course, on the other side of it, you've got all these folks that are saying, look at what's happening in this market. people are going crazy for these homes, paying, great amounts of money for properties. I'm going to take advantage of this. It's time for me to sell. It's time for me to cash in my chips, go and transition to something else and call it a day. Buy low, sell high. And, even if they, especially for folks that are downsizing right now, man, it makes a lot of sense for folks to go ahead and cash in their chips, sell their property. There are so many areas out there in Charleston where there's nothing available for sale. And we go on some of these appointments and we go to pull comparable sales. And now, thankfully, we have all of these records of homes that have sold in their neighborhood because it gives us a good indication of what people are actually willing to pay for properties, rather than in a buyer's market where there's really not a lot that has sold, but there sure is a heck of a lot for sale. But either way, you're either looking at what people have been willing to pay for properties in the past, which is a more accurate way of doing it, or you're looking at what everybody else is asking for their home and how you can be more competitive. How you can essentially cut your competition out at the knees and be the one that the buyer chooses. Well, right now, in a lot of areas, you're the only one that they can choose. Because if somebody's looking for something like what you have, yes, there might be other properties on the market, but think about all the different neighborhoods here in Charleston that range from a home that has 1,300 square feet to 3,500 square feet, or, 2,000 to 6,000. There are all these different areas of Charleston that have a lot of variety, which is frankly what makes selling real estate here and just owning property in Charleston so cool. We're not this big cookie cutter community. We've got a lot of variety. We've got some, we've just got all different types of properties. We've got beachfront, we've got waterfront, we've got historic, we've got, urban sprawl, we've got downtown, we've got all kinds of stuff. So equestrian properties, and we sell them all. We love doing it. But if you look at just what's happening in this market, we're absorbing inventory at an alarming rate, so much so that our month supply of inventory, which is really what we use to kind of measure the health of a real estate market, is now sitting at 1.9 months supply of inventory, meaning if nothing else hits the market, we're out. We're out of inventory in 2 months. This time last year, it was literally more than double that. It was at 4 months, which is still a seller's market, a balanced market where there's no real upward or downward pressure on pricing, is about 6 to 8 months supply of inventory, probably a little closer to 6 months of inventory. But obviously the more expensive the home, the longer they take to sell because the less buyers there are for properties like that. And so month's supply of inventory is now down 53% from this time last year. And so everybody always asks, well, what's the impact on pricing? Well, this time last year, our median sales price, and I'm going back to September, but our September median sales price in the Charleston Tri-County area was $263,000. At the end of September, it was at $300,000. That's up 14%. Now that's the median. The average has us at 27%. It's unbelievable what's happening in this market right now, and then the reality is it's making it very challenging for buyers to make an offer that, frankly, they feel good about. And that's the challenge right now. Is anybody can go into a property that they like and say, okay, well, I'll just give them what they want, or I'll give them a little more than what they're asking so that I can get the house. But you don't want to just throw something at them that they're going to take if you don't feel good about it, right? Everybody's still, no matter what, they want a deal. Well, obviously in an environment like this, sometimes the deal that you get is just getting the house. You're the one that won. You got the house. And realistically speaking, if you had to go over, if you had to spend a few $1,000s more than what you wanted to spend, the monthly implication on that, because interest rates are so incredibly low, boils down to, an extra sandwich or two that you can't eat a month. It's $5, $10, $15. And so people are willing to take on that risk to get the home that they want so that they can lock into an interest rate that's sub 3% for the next 30 years. And so I think that people always tend to focus on the price. And that's why things always get so close when we're negotiating, and we have these standoffs between folks for $1,000 or $2,000, or obviously the more expensive the property, the bigger the gap. When in reality, buyers are the ones that are saying, okay, seller, we're going to let you win this initial round of negotiating because, frankly, I want that interest rate. And I think they're here to stay for a while. I don't think they're going anywhere, and the Fed has said as much. So I wouldn't be alarmed or listen to, doom and gloomers that are saying, hey, we could be at 5% by the end of the year. I literally had somebody that I was following say something like that, and I was like, all right, well, you're an idiot. I'm not following you anymore. Unless there's something that just happens that's completely out of control that nobody saw coming, and even then, I can't see that happening. So I don't think we're looking at 5% interest rates here in the next few months. That was an absurd comment. So what do we do? Where do we go from here? If you're a seller, what's the game plan? If you're a buyer and you want to buy, how do we go about navigating a market like this? How do we find opportunity? How do we feel good about making an offer on something? And really the headliner for buyers is, how do we find the properties? How do we find the ones that everybody doesn't know about yet? So we're going to talk about that when we come back. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. And remember, if you want to reach out to me and talk more about your situation, you're thinking about buying, selling, investing in real estate, we'd love to help. I'd love to personally talk with you about that. My personal number is 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. Or send me an email, brian@brianbeattyteam.com. And, of course, visit us online, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Have a real estate question? Ask Brian Beatty. Send him an email, lowcountryhomesales@gmail.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show is on 1250 WTMA.
1250 WTMA.
You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Welcome back, folks, as the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I always like to take just a little bit of time and say thank you to those of you that listen to the show and rely on the information within it. It's always a pleasure to be on the show. For those of you that have listened to me for years, I've been on the program for 8 years now. You guys know how kind of therapeutic I find this show and the ability to just talk straight with you about what's happening in the market, about what I'm experiencing and what I believe is going to happen, and how you guys can take that information and incorporate it into your decision making so that you have realistic expectations about this market. I remove the fluff, I remove the buzz. I'm not here to influence your decision making through scare tactics. I'm fully aware that people either run toward pleasure or away from pain, and I'm just here to deliver the facts and let you guys interpret that based on your own situation so you can make the right decision for yourself. So again, if you'd like to talk more with me one-on-one about your interest in buying a home, selling a home, investing in real estate, we'd love to help. My number is 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. Or go to listingsincharleston.com. Listingsincharleston.com. A lot of great information on there, by the way. So, I just talked with you guys about what's happening in the market right now. What's happening in the local market? We've got properties that are basically selling in just a matter of days. I mean, the median days on market in the Charleston Tri-County area right now is 11. 11 days. That is a short amount of time. This time last year, it was about a month. And that's the median. Now, if I'm looking at the average, then we're at 43 days. But, and that has remained a little unchanged. But I like using median numbers instead of average, and I don't want to get into all of that. But they're selling quickly. Can we just leave it at that? Prices that are in good condition, that are marketed well, that are priced right, are selling quickly. You've got all these buyers that are looking around right now. They're kind of watching and waiting like hawks. Ready to swoop in on a property that, has those key factors. It's priced well. It's marketed well. It's in good condition. And even if it's not, several buyers out there are still going to consider it just because they don't have the luxury of sifting through a bunch of other properties that check all their boxes. They are willing to expand their search and be more creative. I know because we're working with a ton of them right now. And so what I want to, I guess, walk through with you guys for a little while here is kind of what we do and what buyers are experiencing when they first start their search, right? So, and I think that our ability to find success with buyers does hinge a lot on, of course, our experience and all of that. But we really do have an effective system for working with buyers and helping them find properties. And I think it really first, of course, starts with we have to really understand what you're looking for, what you want, what kind of home would cause you to say, yep, this is it. This is what I'm looking for. Let's write an offer on it. And so it starts with us asking a lot of questions. And we really like to set proper expectations with folks. So we let them know what's going to happen when we make an offer. We explain every facet of the contract so we don't have to have the process be delayed. Because frankly, when we see that right property, we want the peace of mind to make a decision, and a quick decision. So we front load a lot of our time to helping you understand the process, understand the contracts, understand what's going to happen before it happens. We get you pre-approved. We have lenders like Derek and folks like Michael and other folks that we work with that will actually take you through the underwriting process and get you approved for a mortgage rather than just having a piece of paper that says, yep, I checked their credit. Everything seems like it's okay, but we got to check everything, really. Tax returns, bank statements, pay stubs. So, I mean, on the surface, it looks good, but it could actually be really bad. We don't really know, but it looks okay. I mean, that's essentially what a pre-qualification letter says. And for those that understand that, they know that it's decent, but you can do a lot better, and you can appear as a much stronger buyer if you get pre-approved or if you go through the approval process and you have this document that says, hey, I'm as good as a cash buyer, quite frankly, because they've already approved me for financing. I just need to find a house and make sure that it appraises for the price that I want to pay for it. Fair enough? Great. So that's a huge help. But, going back to this process of working with buyers, again, we talk with them about the market. So if we're looking at homes in this area and this price range, here are the market dynamics. It would be very similar to me meeting with somebody and talking with them as if we were going to sell their house, because we go through all these stats. And I spend a long time on this with my sellers because I want proper expectations to be set. I want them to understand the targets that we should be hitting based on market activity. Same thing with buyers. I want them to understand, generally speaking, when a property lists in this area, in this price range, this is about how quickly it sells. This is the difference between the original asking price and the sales price. And if it's very close to 100% and a buyer wants to start making offers at 20% off, I mean, hey, we'll do it because we're your agent, but is that going to fly? Probably not. Unless you're willing to throw out 100-something offers to find something that sticks. I mean, you can throw enough stuff on the ceiling and you'll find something that'll stick. But generally speaking, buyers don't have that kind of time. And quite honestly, I don't know if agents are going to be willing to spend that much time on you either. Just shooting you straight. So anyways, we go through this process. We have them understand the market, the dynamics, what they can expect when it comes time to negotiate. We answer a lot of their questions up front about the contract. So we're not bottlenecked there. And of course, situations will arise and we have to play problem solver as a real estate agent. And that's what makes a really good real estate agent good at what they do, is their ability to think outside of the box based on previous experience and offer up solutions that help their clients win in that particular scenario. But the main thing here is that, if you think about the number one struggle that buyers have right now, it's that they either can't find what they like, or when they find something they like, it's gone by the time they get a chance to take a look at it. And so we deal with it, or by the time they find it, so many people are interested and so many offers are on the table that you have to offer something just borderline ridiculous to get the property. And a lot of buyers aren't willing to go so far above what they believe it's worth just to get the property, and for the sake of winning, that it really just causes them to say, okay, well, we'll try again. And so there are a few things at play here. Sorry for the long build up to this, but The reality is this. You first have to understand how most real estate agents work. And when you talk with a real estate agent, and I promise you, this is how it goes 9 times out of 10. I've been doing this a little while, so 15 years. When you talk with an agent about what you want to buy, let's say that you go on Zillow and you've got, there are like 99% of the listings that are on Zillow, when you really analyze it, there are multiple agents for you to choose from when you go on these sites. Just as a quick side note, I'm one of I'm maybe one of a dozen agents in Charleston that when you list with me, I'm the only agent that will appear on my own listings. In other words, if somebody's interested in my listing, I guarantee that I'm the only person they contact. We're not losing interested buyers and those conversations to agents that frankly don't know anything about the listing. They're paying Zillow to appear on this list. Sorry for the sidebar, but you guys should know that. So anyways, let's say as a buyer, you go and you find a property, you have a conversation with some random agent attached to a random listing. Turns out it's not what you're looking for. And so here's what the agent's going to do. They're going to say, well, tell me a little bit more about what you're looking for. So you give them your search criteria. And then they say, the conversation always goes kind of in this direction. And they say, well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set up a search for you in the MLS based on the parameters you've given me. And each time a new property hits the market, I'm going to send you those properties. And it'll say something like today's new listings. And whenever you see something you like, you give me a call and I'll go and I'll show that to you. Okay, is that fair? And they say, sure, yeah, sounds great. And so it's like, wow, you've been given the keys to the castle. You've been granted access to this, secret society. Agents are inherently lazy these days. They're very reactive. They love the whole set it and forget it mentality because it makes their job easier. They can work with more people if they just spend 5 minutes setting up a search for you and then basically put all the responsibility back on you. So that by the time you check your email and you see a property that you really like and you realize that it hit the market 3 days ago and it's already under contract, that agent's like, oh yeah, sorry. When you call the agent, they're like, yeah, sorry, that one's already under contract. Are you checking them every day? Like they put it back on you. But I think what a lot of buyers really want is an agent that truly understands what they're looking for. And then as soon as that property hits the market, that agent should be getting the alert just like the buyer should be. And that agent calls the buyer and says, hey, did you see that house at 123 Main Street? Hey, we got to go and take a look at that. That's, I think, the right one. Can you meet me over there in like the next hour? And we're not doing that to be pushy salespeople. We're doing it because we understand the urgency of the situation and because we're really in tune with what you're looking for. So that's one way of combating this issue is you got to be Johnny on the spot with some of these properties that are priced really well, that are in good condition, that are marketed well. And if it's just left up to the buyer and you're not really diligent about checking those emails, then yeah, you're going to go through the pain of losing some properties that you would have bought had you had enough time to make an informed decision. Or decision at all, quite honestly. There's one other thing I want to talk about, and I'm going to do that when I come back, which is, how are we finding properties and making buyers aware of them before they hit the market? That's a big key to our success right now, and I want to tell you more about that when we come back. So stick around for the last few minutes of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. And remember, if you want to reach out to me and talk more about how we can help you find properties that are not available, we're going to talk about this in just a second. Or as a seller, if you want us to bring all the buyers that we already have to your home, whether you're selling it on your own or you want to hire us to do that for you, give me a call, 843-400-8009, 400-8009, or go to listingsincharleston.com. Stick around, folks. We'll be right back.
Find Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues next on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
1250 WTMA.
Now, the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues on Charleston's Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, folks, to the last few minutes of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. So I want to finish the show with, again, this struggle that buyers have right now, which is they really just can't find a lot of what they want to buy. When they hit the market, they're selling quickly. We've heard this story. We've been through this scenario. And so I was talking, I'll share a story with you. I was talking with an agent that I was interviewing. We're growing our team. We're up to 20 people and we're still growing. It's been a fantastic year and we're very blessed and very thankful. And of course, appreciative of the folks that call and rely on us to help them with their real estate needs. So thank you for that. But we were talking about, this process, these buyers that agents are working with that they just can't find properties for. And so I'm asking questions about what they're doing to go and proactively find properties. And the reality is this: most agents don't have an efficient way of doing that, because what are the options? Well, people that just naturally inquire about properties for sale that also need to sell their home, but that's not really targeted in any way, shape, or form. That's just luck of the draw. You could go and you could knock on doors in a community, but I'm certainly not going to do that, especially not right now, nor am I going to encourage any agent on my team to do that, because, I think about my wife. If some random person knocked on my door right now and my wife was home and it was her answering the door, I'd tell her not to answer that door. I mean, it's weird and it's kind of inconsiderate given everything going on right now. So knocking doors are out. Could you send letters? Sure. Not a lot of agents have the money to do that, at least at scale. Or you could just call everybody. But do single agents have the time to do that and go on that kind of fishing expedition? And the answer is no, they really don't, because agents, generally speaking, are fairly busy right now. But busy with what? I think is the question. If they have clients and somebody wants to buy a house, what are they doing for you? And I'm not saying this to bash agents. I'm just saying, where are they spending their time? And so we realize that this is a struggle for a lot of folks, and we're fortunate in that we have systems and people that can alleviate this part of the process. And so, like as an example, we have what are called inside sales agents. They are people that I employ. They're employees of my company, and their job, really their only job, is to call people that want to buy or sell real estate, either in response to something that they inquired about, or if somebody says, hey, I have honed in on this particular neighborhood and I'm fairly flexible in the type of home that I want to buy, but I want to be in this area. We'll say, great. We will literally call everybody in that neighborhood. And we have a very efficient way of doing it. We have a large team of people that can do it. We can call a 400, 500 person neighborhood in a day. If you had to call 400 people, think about this. As an individual, if you had to call 400 people, how long would that take you? It would take you at least a week, probably weeks. You wouldn't be able to do anything else that week. And so you just wouldn't do it. And so we're out there and we're uncovering all of these properties. We're looking for the needles in the haystack, but we can do it in much more targeted ways using social media. We can geofence neighborhoods. We can proactively target people based on demographics and search history and online behavior. All of that leads to a big database of people that want to buy or sell a home at a certain period in time. And of course, with differing search criteria, search parameters. And so I think the agents that are really doing a great job for their clients right now, and the clients that are really appreciative of the agents they work with, are the ones that have a really efficient system and effective way of finding opportunities for people proactively that they can't find themselves. And so I want to leave you with that, because there is an efficient way of doing that, but the ability to create that system and the barrier to entry and the cost associated with it and the learning curve associated with it is fairly steep. It just so happens we've been doing it for 2 years already, so we're a little ahead of the curve. So if you want to buy or sell a home and you're struggling with, if you want to buy a home and you're struggling to find inventory, give us a call, because we've got a big database of sellers that will be hitting the market at some point in the next few months to year or two. Same thing with buyers. We'd love to help. 843-400-8009 is my number, 400-8009, or go to listingsincharleston.com. You guys have a great weekend. Thanks for listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 10. Contact Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. 843-345-1273.